Before you tonight, we have the preliminary plat for Harvest Hills addition to the city of Moscow. So, just to orient yourself to the subject property, outlined in red in the center of your screen, 24.7 acres, essentially east of Mountain View. We have the 3rd Street alignment here, which projects through the proposed subdivision. Ends up tying in with the 3rd Street alignment with Rolling Hills 8th Edition. You have various single-family residential developments within the Rolling Hills additions to the south. You also have single-family residential development to the north, Mosier Estates, Skyview Estates. You also have residential development to the west of the subject property across Mountain View Road. And before we get into the Harvest Hills proposed preliminary plat tonight, I just wanted to give a little bit of background as to what's occurred so far on this property. So the property was annexed and rezoned in 2005, and that was from the Ag Forest designation to the moderate density residential, which is our R2 designation. There was a preliminary plat for Windfall Hills, which was the former name of this proposed subdivision. Included 77 single-family residential lots, about an average lot size of 9,700 square feet, which equates to about 4.5 dwelling units per acre of net density. And the roadway alignments were virtually the same as what's proposed before you tonight with the Harvest Hills addition. And this was approved on August 1st, 2005. And so this is just a sample plat map of what was approved. As you can tell, there's the 3rd Street alignment, which projects through the subdivision. You also have a cul-de-sac here to the west. You also have a local residential street. Amber Court is what it's proposed in the plat tonight. Ends up going in a one-way, 20-foot wide drive in a circular fashion around a piece of park property. In 2006, the applicant submitted a PUD to go along with the preliminary plat for Windfall Hills. That included sample home elevations with similar architectural style throughout the development. He also had reduced front yard setbacks, which at the time were 25 feet for that R2 zone. The PUD effectively reduced those to 10 feet. And for that, the developer proposed to provide additional landscaping and public amenities within the subdivision, and this was approved on July 19th, 2006. And so around that time in 2008, the city and the developer had entered into a discussion regarding a communications pedestal, a Verizon pedestal that required relocation as part of this plat. And at the time, the city was contemplating a road improvement project on the portion of Mountain View Road, which included the frontage of Windfall Hills subdivision. The city had a desire to extend Jansen Street to Damon Street, which was currently undeveloped and provided no connection with the Jansen Street extension. So there came the 2008 MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, that the city and the developer entered into and executed by City Council on April 21st, 2008. And the gist of that was that the city would contribute up to $50,000 towards the communication pedestal relocation and be responsible for Jansen extension, just the underground utilities. The developer was responsible for Mountain View Road frontage improvements, which included bicycle and pedestrian path on that east side of the street and roadway improvements for the Jansen Street extension. And then in July 21st of 2008, the final plat and the development agreement were approved by council. And it just so happened that some of the conditions within the 2008 MOU were not satisfied, which brought us to an updated MOU, herein called the 2009 MOU, whereas the city was responsible for improvements to Mountain View Road, which included the paving, curb gutter, and the drainage system. The communication pedestal, in the time being, was relocated by Verizon. So now the developer within this 2009 MOU was responsible for Jansen Street extension, which included underground utilities to occur in Phase 1 of the subdivision. At the time, there was 2 phases of the proposed Windfall Hills subdivision. Also required to dedicate street right-of-way of the 25-foot and a 35-foot easement on the east side of Mountain View Road. That's a street pedestal and bicycle path, pedestrian and bicycle path. that currently exist out there today, and that the final plat was to be recorded on June 3rd, 2009. Well, since that time, the city has since constructed the agreed-upon improvements to Mountain View Road, and the developer has dedicated a portion of Mountain View right-of-way. The property originally had gone to the center of the street, so there's a right-of-way dedication as well as that 25-foot wide and 35-foot wide pathway easements on the east side of Mountain View. Well, the developer never filed the Windfall Hills final plat or completed the Jansen Street extension, and the final plat approval expired, which required the developer to start basically from the beginning of the subdivision plat process. So that brings us to the proposal before you tonight, Harvest Hills Edition. Once again, we've got the subject property center of your screen there.
Mike, if I may interrupt you before you go further.
Sure.
Just to get to this point and make sure I'm clear, did the city ever spend the $50,000 that they committed?
We did not. Verizon, under a franchise, relocated within the right-of-way, so that did not. I don't believe the city participated in that.
Okay, and secondly, if I understand, this property is a vacant field, unplatted, no commitments on it by the city or a developer at this moment.
Just the previous MOUs that were entered into, and
they're no longer operative?
they're recorded.
They would still be valid.
So
They would still be good.
the memorandum of understanding is still in force?
Yeah, there was,
2009.
yeah,
Okay.
it went on to the buyer.
So those move forward with the land to the new buyer?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just looking at the subject property one more time, we have contour lines, topographical lines. These represent 2 feet of elevation change per every black line. You also have some gray lines in there as well that represent 10 feet of elevation change. So you're looking at slopes upwards, 15, 20% on that south side adjacent to that hill. You also have a large valley that runs down the center of the property. Looking at the floodplain in the area, the yellow line represents the floodway, and you can see portions of the 100-year floodplain, which is represented by the blue line. You can tell that it just basically goes across the northwest corner of the property, and as you will see, doesn't affect any of the lots, just the parkland, portion of the parkland dedication. Looking at the current zoning of the area, the subject property is that moderate density residential, which is R2. Single-family zone. You can tell from the northwest, south, and east, all that property is also designated R2. So taking a look at what our zoning code says about the R2 zone, it says that it's moderate density residential zone appropriate where the following circumstances are present, where single-family dwellings predominate, the terrain is not harshly irregular, and smaller lot sizes can be accommodated without extensive earthwork. Utilities and other public facilities are adequate for the densities allowed. Existing lot development patterns and policies embodied in the plan will also guide application of this zoning district. So allowable uses are basically just single-family residential dwellings, and typically we observe densities in that zone at around 3 to 4 units per net acre. Minimum lot size 7,000 square feet, and the minimum width is 60 feet. Brings us to the Harvest Hills preliminary plat. As you can tell, it was similar to the Windfall Hills plat that you looked at earlier. Basically, the 3rd Street alignment. 3rd Street is currently designated in this alignment as the Urban Collector Street. You have Jordan Court cul-de-sac here to the west. You also have the 3rd Street alignment that heads east, ends up going north on the Jansen Street alignment. From Jansen Street, we also have Amber Court, which is a local neighborhood street. Basically consists of, at the end of it, one of the proposed parkland parcels and a 20-foot wide travel aisle in the street that basically circles the park property. You also have various other parkland dedication. You have the 20-foot, 5-foot wide pedestrian bicycle easement here on the east. You also have the 35-foot wide pedestrian bicycle easement, as well as stormwater detention parcel here to the northwest.
Tom had it. Tom, did you have a question for Mike earlier?
I just was trying to figure out when the name change occurred. Is that just with this new?
This is a brand-new proposal.
Okay.
Yep, the former plat was basically null and void because they failed to record that up at the county.
Got it.
So,
Dan?
So, Mike, stormwater retention areas count for parkland dedication?
I think it'd be a question for Dwight, but typically it's the net developable area, so it'd just be the lot size, the lots within the development, so excluding the streets, as well as those stormwater retention parcels.
Anybody else have questions for Mike? Art, would you?
You might mention the pedestrian access at the far east end.
Sure. Yeah, we also have a 20-foot wide right-of-way here at the east end. Failed to mention we have Mosier Park, which is approximately 5-acre park here to the east. And part of this 20-foot wide circular drive around the cul-de-sac park here is a 20-foot wide right-of-way with 5-foot wide easements on either side. And that carries utilities as well as pedestrian bicyclists to the Mosier Park property and gives it access off of Amber Court.
How wide is that path, Mike, from the cul-de-sac turning around to that park?
It's 20 feet wide with 5-foot easements on either side,
All right.
so an effective 30-foot width. And it does have 3 utilities in it and serves as pedestrian bicycle access.
Okay. Tom?
It looks like there are several lots between the proposed preliminary plat and that are at the south end of that previous plat that have writing on them that I can't read. Can you?
We'll get into that a little bit later. There's actually a pedestrian bicycle easement that was part of, you're referring to right here?
No, I'm referring to. No, sorry. I'm trying to figure out the access to these lots right here. They look like lots, but
Yeah.
I don't see how.
They had done lots of consolidation, so essentially they're part of these properties on Mosier.
Okay.
So these owners of houses on Mosier ended up purchasing property at the rear, and under our zoning code, if it's under common ownership, we essentially recognize it as one lot, even though it may appear as a couple different lots there. But essentially, the owners own those of the
All right.
properties on Mosier.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we have 75 lots within this proposal, and they range from a little over 7,000 square feet in size, which is our minimum for R2, to about 19,496 square feet in size on the higher end. Average lot size is about 10,500 square feet. Equates to about 3.75 units per net acre. And just wanted to take a look at average lot sizes within the vicinity. Mosier Estates 1 through 4 to the north. The average lot size just a little over 12,000 square feet. Skyview Estates about 13,500 square feet. Damon subdivision 10,374 square feet. We got Rolling Hills 6, which is about 11,250 square feet. Rolling Hills 7th. About the same, almost 12,000 square feet for average size. And then Rolling Hills South to the, Rolling Hills 8th to the south, excuse me, the least of all the subdivisions, about 9,659 square feet in size for all the lots within that development. So I had mentioned earlier about the Jansen Street extension. Just wanted to delineate that on the map for you, outlined in red here. Essentially connects the proposed Harvest Hills subdivision through the Jansen Street extension. We have Jansen Street extension, and then it ends up connecting into Damon, there to the north, currently undeveloped. And so on this, I just have geo-reference the plat map, so you can see the road alignments and how they tie in. Once again, you got Rolling Hills 8th, which 3rd Street ends up transecting. 3rd Street alignment ends up going northeast, eventually connecting into D Street to the north, at least shown on our thoroughfare plan to do so. So that brings us to the thoroughfare plan. You can see the dashed green line in the center is what we had anticipated to be the 3rd Street alignment. Once again, heading down to Rolling Hills 8th, eventually turns 90 degrees and heads north Eventually will connect with D Street, which is designated as an arterial. Wanted to take a look at current water service, which exists in a 10-inch water main, which is currently extended into the property as part of just that portion of 3rd Street that's already constructed by the city. An 8-inch main is proposed to be extended in all other streets and to the eastern subdivision boundary. A sanitary sewer system consists of an 8-inch main, which currently exists in the 3rd Street alignment, which was put in by the previous developer of the Windfall Hills development. And a new main will be extended through Amber Court to the subdivision's eastern boundary, which essentially ties in with the Mosier Park property. Storm sewer is basically conveyed through a new storm sewer line to that detention pond that I had mentioned earlier in that northwest corner of the proposed development by Paradise Creek. And eventually the stormwater detention pond ends up discharging into Paradise Creek. Just wanted to go through the street network briefly. Mountain View Road is designated as a minor arterial within our thoroughfare plan. It consists of a 48-foot wide roadway in this section, 2 travel lanes, bike lanes, curb gutter, sidewalk on both sides of the street. 3rd Street, once again, it's a collector. Proposed to be 35-foot roadway with no on-street parking at this time. Then you have the local neighborhood streets, Jordan Court, Jansen Street, Amber Court, which are 28-foot wide roadways with on-street parking on just one side of the street. So, brings us to the Jansen Street extension. This is that undeveloped portion I had outlined in red. And this developer is required to construct this section per that 2009 Memorandum of Understanding that we discussed previously.
If I may, Mayor.
Go ahead, Walter.
And that 2009 MOU was curb, gutter, sidewalks, pavement, and utilities?
Yeah, the first iteration, the city was responsible for the underground utilities. The 2009 MOU required the developer to construct everything, above ground and below ground.
Thank you.
Talk about the Amber Court cul-de-sac again. That's a one-way travel lane. It is a 28-foot wide section of right-of-way, but it's only proposed to be paved to a 25-foot or a 20-foot width with no on-street parking. And this is, once again, that 20-foot wide pedestrian right-of-way corridor with a 5-foot easements on both sides access the Mosier Park property. And it brings us to Jordan Court cul-de-sac. This is the cul-de-sac in the northwest corner. The applicant is currently proposing that to be a 60-foot diameter. Within our street standards, we have a 60-foot diameter cul-de-sac and an 80-foot diameter cul-de-sac with on-street parking in that 80-foot. The 2009 International Fire Code requires a 96-foot diameter in order to turn around fire apparatus. And this is only if the roadway exceeds 150 feet in length, which the current proposal before you today exceeds the 150 feet in length for Jordan Court. So the fire department, unless the applicant could get that distance down, stand by a requirement of the 96-foot wide cul-de-sac diameter. And there is a memo from Joe Williams, the fire marshal, attached to your packet tonight. Just wanted to point out the pedestrian easement that exists between the proposed Harvest Hills subdivision and Rolling Hills 8th addition to the south. Essentially on the common lot lines of 8 and 9 of Block 4. Have it outlined in purple here. Connects, and it's basically a 10-foot wide pedestrian easement, which ends up connecting Amber Court with 3rd Street. And the reason it's there is just the overly long block length of Amber Court.